Hello, welcome in. Thank you for coming to my channel. My name is Sensei Martian. Today our video is a conversation with my friend, printmaker David Bull. He's been a friend for about a year, but I've been a fan of his for a couple of years now. And during one of his streams, a commenter talked about a book called The Roads to Sata by Alan Booth. I picked the book up on a whim, and then I read it in a day. I couldn't put it down. And the idea in the book, he walks from Hokkaido to Kagoshima, top to bottom of the main islands of Japan. And the idea was so large, I couldn't do it possibly. There's no way. But last summer, I was streaming and I was walking every day, 5 miles, 10 miles, 15 miles, 10, 20, 30 kilometers per day occasionally. And I thought, well, what if I just make it consistent? 20, 25 kilometers, go in one direction, see what happens. And so, as many of you know, that was the old Tokaido Road project. We walked from Tokyo to Kyoto in about 24, 25 days. The test had been done. It was successful. Great trip. But it wasn't exactly what I wanted. I wanted to talk to people. I wanted to hear stories, listen to memories, learn about the history of places. I had talked to Dave about this a couple of times, and he agreed that, that there's more, there are more stories there, more to do there. And so when I told him about this next project, walking from Kagoshima to Hokkaido, I said I want to do interviews, not stiff, strict interviews, but I wanted to have conversations with people. And if he would be so kind to give me some time, if he wouldn't mind being the first official guest. And he said yes. So, without further ado, thank you very much for coming in. This is a nice conversation about various things in life, content creation, coming to Japan, working, being successful, and I hope you enjoy it. Please consider following or subscribing or whatever to help out if you enjoy the content. If not, that's okay too. Thank you for coming in. Hope to see everyone soon. Bye.
We are up and running.
Great.
Do you need a sync?
But yeah. So
hey, Jason, nice to see you.
Nice to see you again.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for always letting me come bother you
no
at
problem,
work.
no problem. You're always a happy face coming in the door. There's always what's his latest adventure. You never know. Never know where you're checking in from.
It's next time might be I'll be gone for some time. I'll be gone for.
Gone? You mean another expedition?
Trip? Yeah. I'll be starting.
Is it secret or is it?
No secret. I think April. I'm heading down to Kagoshima on the 10th. But getting to the bottom, it might be.
So what? You're doing Kyushu?
No, I'm doing the whole shebang.
No way! Up to Hokkaido?
That's correct.
Really? Yeah. But south to north? This is not the official...
This is not the official road to Sata, but I think it's okay.
Sata.
The road from Sata, yeah. Okay. I was rereading the book, and I thought it would be fun to recreate his exact steps, but I realized...
What do you mean, meet the girls you met? I mean, come on. Does anybody know what we're talking about here? Is it okay to let it go?
Yeah, so it's for everyone that knows, the main thing that also, the reason I tried the Tokaido, obviously the historical aspect, but I read the book last March, The Roads to Sata by Alan Booth, the late Alan Booth, and he walked from Soya Misaki, tip of Hokkaido to tip of Kagoshima. And I had just started streaming last year about the time, and I thought, I can't do anything like that. I have work, I have a job.
Too big, you mean? Yeah.
Too big, and then, I started streaming, and I thought, well, I'm walking 10 kilometers a day. Let's do 15. Around Tokyo. I would walk where I live in Shibuya-ku, and I would walk up to Asakusa, come say hi, and so I said, well, let's do 15. And then 15.
So what you're getting at is you worked up to this bit by bit.
I worked up
How
a little
long
bit.
Is it?
So it depends on the route, and the main reason I'm not following his route is because he ends up cutting through from Fukui to he goes down to Hiroshima, but I really want to see Izumo Taisha. I really want to see Totori, and so I'll be hugging. I'll be hugging the back of Japan a little.
But you said
more.
you're coming south to north, so are you following cherry blossoms or something?
I was going to try,
but this year it's too not fast enough. But also the big thing is this year's weather is very strange. It's been, even today, it's March 20th, and it was 6 degrees outside.
It's the joke around town, not just a joke anywhere right now. It's get all 4 seasons in the same day, of course. The new paradigm.
But so I'll be hopefully starting around the second week of April, and then I'll be gone for, conservatively, I'm saying 4 months. But
John, is this going to be like a one shot, or are you going to do X part, then return home, and then come back, and you're going to
do it all
one shot?
One shot. I'm testing out with equipment, seeing how heavy I can make my pack without breaking my back. Last time was 17 kilograms plus water. I would like to keep it under 20.
Okay, but we're not walking the Sahara Desert here. I mean, this is Japan. There's a convenience store every 50 meters, or not quite, not quite. But
that's one thing. The problem is throughout Kyushu and lots of what is that, Chugoku?
There aren't convenience stores there.
There are, but it's not 50 meters. It's about
not like here.
5 kilometers. 10 kilometers, or the biggest thing too is, and this is one thing that is much different than in the book, Alan. In the Road to Sato, but Alan, a lot of places turn him away because he's not Japanese. I don't anticipate that happening to me now. I do think, at least hospitality-wise, things have gotten a little bit better.
Okay, so you're not camping outside. You're staying in.
I'll be staying, because I'll be working the whole time.
So you need the Wi-Fi.
I need the Wi-Fi. Now, I have cut down. One thing I learned from my Tokaido trip, I can't burn the candle for 19 hours. Physical labor
for 4 months in a row.
It's your body wears out and things wear down. But
wait a minute, 19 hours, 7 days a week. Wait a minute, that's. But now that you talk about
working is different, but walking,
okay.
it's the even if you prepped for it. I prepped in Tokyo last summer, very hot, but it's just different, and especially like with the Tokaido, as you said, like. I'm just walking along trucks for 6 hours a day for
a lot of it wasn't, honestly speaking, that interesting. So
so that's the big goal of this next trip, is to spend more time talking to people. There are days that will just be hoof it days, from big city or from small city to small city. But this time I'm emailing people in advance, mayors. Lions clubs, things like that.
Okay. So we're going to go with you.
We're
going to go with you and learn stuff as we go.
That's the goal. And
rather
some of
than
it,
just he made it to the end finally.
I'm hoping to get interviews in most cities that I stop in with people. Again, it could be a business owner, it could be a restaurant owner, it could be the mayor, it could be whoever
in order to make that happen, then you've got to get a good strong start. Because if you can do that and then show what's going to happen, you can send that in advance, and away you go, and they want to get on the train.
That's why I think my Japanese is not fluent. I don't know if I'll ever get fluent, but it's good enough, and I don't mind making mistakes. And I think for a lot of people, that's what when it comes to speaking Japanese, a lot of people worry about making mistakes.
A lot of people, meaning Japanese people.
Well, no, Japanese people worry about speaking English. But I think the same goes for non-Japanese. Like when people start to learn, I know a lot of cohorts or friends that they go, "Oh, I can't speak Japanese," and I go, "Why not?" And they go, "Oh, it's just too impossible. It's too big. I never studied."
I'm not sure who you're talking to. I mean, without being sarcastic, the general mood among people like you and me are just whatever, jump in the pool and start swimming. Of course.
I think a lot of people who have those things that you and I are a little bit more.
I
don't want to say
entrepreneurial,
freelance.
I get it.
We kind of had.
So we're not going into work at Nomura Securities or something. Yes, I get it.
Versus if I just worked at a regular school and I understand. This, they say, well, it's taken care of. I can order. I'm okay. And I think one thing I noticed too with Tokaido, like you also learn when you're put in that pressure, because even in Japan, if I'm with friends, or even in Tokyo, if I'm with friends and I don't know a word, and then the friends will tell me. But same thing, when I was on the Tokaido, for example, I forgot the word for laundry detergent, which is Sensei. But I said, "Hasaya-san, sentaki no Sentaku no
explain the
soku
use
wa-
case,
yeah.
and of course people
And then
understand.
talking
Of
around it,
course,
and they
of
go,
course,
oh
of
yeah,
course.
this, and I go, yes, 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 yes. Because once they say it, it recognizes and then going from there. But
I mean, this is how it's done.
yeah, it's trial and error. And so, but the main thing I learned from the last trip is I want to talk to people, and that's I think one of the things that I missed.
There was one highlight I remember. I didn't follow along with you every step of that. We were kind of
of
busy, but
course.
I did drop in. And one day you were somewhere along the way and you met two women and you spent like 15, 20, 25 minutes chatting with them. And I hung around to listen to this conversation, because it was an interesting part of what you were doing instead of just watching the trucks go by every minute. So yeah, if you can replicate that kind of experience, absolutely.
Well, and this is one thing we've talked before about streaming and how, haishinsha is kind of a dirty word, so to speak. And so this is another reason why I'm starting to do YouTube content, because explaining the idea of a YouTube video, and I will edit it, and I will do this and this.
People are already on board.
People are on board with it, versus if I just show up with a camera and say, surprise, show me your inner secrets. And they don't want to do that. And it's understandably so. I completely understand that. And so I will be streaming a lot of the day-to-day, the boring stuff. But I think some people, this is one thing I learned too, they work from home and they maybe are programming on one screen and they have me as background.
Oh, your viewers you're talking about.
Viewers,
I thought you meant
viewers. Sorry, yeah. So viewers watch me, second screen type stuff, or they, passively, maybe they're cleaning or cooking, and they say, "What's Sensei Martian doing today?" And
yes, so there can be quiet spells there. You don't have to hold everybody's attention for every minute.
That's correct.
Yeah, it's kind of maybe a little bit like our YouTube channel where there is content on what we do, but also I have to understand a lot of my viewers have put it on 5 minutes that are asleep, and the next 3 hours of the video it's in the background.
It's also very, because your videos are very, I remember the whole reason I became a big fan, I've been watching your stream for a long time, been buying prints for years, but your beginnings video where you talk about how you get started, and you speak with such conviction that I hoped one day I can possibly find something that moves me to the same way that I think when you first saw the prints from the Tales of the Okada Yoshio prints, that I hoped that I could also do that. And I think I've somewhat found it, not necessarily by content creation, but finding human connection, and it's ironic because obviously this is YouTube and social media. but finding,
keep digging, James. Keep digging.
it's so meta, but finding human connections within
I get it. Of course,
a digital thing. And I think with COVID, a lot of that happened where I realized for the first year I was okay inside at home by myself, and then the second year I thought, I'm getting a bit stir crazy, cabin fever, and so now I saved up money during that time, and I'm able to do things that.
Okay, but there's a little bit of a paradox or self. You're talking about you want to find something that enables you to meet people and talk to people. Here you are setting off all by yourself to get out on the highway and get away from people and walk the length of Japan.
I think there's one thing that always was easy for me was like book learning, academic stuff. I can pick up pretty quickly, but anything physical was always. I never had a reason to push myself physically. And, during COVID, I packed on some pounds and kilograms. And I think as I about to turn 31. I'll be 31 on April 1st. Happy birthday, me. But I'm trying to, in my 20s, it was kind of finding out like what makes me happy, what do I like, what do I dislike. And now it's how do I maximize that? And I guess we'll see. But I wanted to talk to you today a little bit about, obviously we both have come to Japan, and you've been here a little bit longer than I have. But when you first came, obviously, you got into woodblock printing, and that was very instrumental in you coming here. But when you first came, there's one thing that happened to me, because I bought a ticket, and then 2 weeks later I was in Japan. No job, no visa, anything really. I had $2,000 saved from my part-time jobs and things like that. But a lot of people said, "You're so crazy. You're so."
Did you know why you were coming?
I was running away. I mean, there were a handful of countries. Initially, I wanted to go to Thailand. I love scuba diving, and Thailand has English teaching, and Thailand has good scuba diving, and I thought, well, I'll drop by Japan first and see, because kind of work my way, and then.
Because if you didn't have a specific motive, then your experience and mine are dramatically different. Because I knew why I wanted to be here. I'd planned for half a year longer. We got a budget. We had spreadsheets, no computer, but written on spreadsheets. We had a plan, and we executed it. Me, my family, the four of us.
Yeah, I did not have such a plan. I was in a position. I had applied for a director level position. I used to do live events, as I said, and I was kind of a shoo-in for that job, and it didn't work out. And I took that pretty hard, and I realized, I talked to my mom, and I said, is there anything you regret in life? And she said, I love you and your brothers, but I wish I'd traveled more. And so I thought, okay, well, I'd been to Mexico, I studied Spanish for a long time, and been there, and then moving to Europe, just buying a one-way ticket to Europe, it's not, it's kind of the same but different. But going to Asia is completely different. And so I wanted to just get out where no one knew who I was, and no one knew who I was. And anything that I did over here was on my own. I had to work, I had to do this thing. And I think for me, because I came from a small town, and even if I worked hard, but you're so-and-so's brother, or you're so-and-so's son, or you're so-and-so's, I didn't want any of that anymore.
Look, at this conversation, Western guy coming to Japan to do such and such, and still here and settling in well. I have mixed feelings about this, as to how much of this is an actual thing that other people could do easily. It's quite a thing. Lots of Western men think about this. Maybe I go over there and do this. Yeah. And my experience now is I got through this and still am here. You're here you are so far. But an awful lot of people who I meet who have come here to do this, they're not here anymore. They're gone. This is not for everybody. Yeah. It's not something that everybody can feel settle in to do, And whether it's 1 in 10 can do this successfully, 1 in 100, 1 in 1,000, I don't know the number, but I don't think it's all that high. So if you're sort of making these videos to sort of, hey, anybody out there, you too, you can, live your dream and come here to Japan and do this. I'm not sure.
I'm not painting coming to Japan as a dream. It's more finding out what your dream is and then going for that. Obviously, because the same thing. I've been struggling with this recently. This idea of walking across Japan, and is it stupid? Because when I tell people, they go, "Why? Why do you want to walk across Japan?" And I go, "Well, this idea of I've lived in this country for so long, and partially because of COVID, but I've only seen portions of it, and so no, I agree with you, and I think it also depends on mindset of when people come to, anything really. What is the main reason for it? And so while I initially ran away to come here, I realized very quickly that because of my youth adapting and, working at this job and doing this thing and doing this thing, I think a lot of people who don't make it in Japan, it could be a language-based thing, or, it's troublesome to go to the city office, but I think at the end of the day that there's a lot of, Japan is very context-based, and I think a lot of people don't take the time to learn the kuki, the atmosphere, as much as, that's one thing. I came here with no Japanese, but I've started following, and even if I don't speak the language, I speak sorry face, or I speak angry, it's when I make a mistake and you sit and you go, and
look, I think what you're saying is you've got to be the kind of person who you've got to roll with stuff. If
you
you're
have to
always
be adaptable.
when things don't work exactly as you expect them to do, if you're going to get cheesed off about it, or you're going to feel these are all microaggressions and stuff, if you're that kind of person, then no, this is not the country for you. Yeah. But if you're flexible and can roll with stuff, and we'll try that again and see how it works next time. Yeah. But it's not just Japan; it's any person living in a society that was different.
This is one thing that's one thing I want to talk to you as well, because obviously you really pushed when you came to Japan and you started teaching, and then you were trying to balance both, and then you realized no, I just want to do woodblocks. But before, not just, but your focus was woodblock printing. But even in Canada, you were what I would say a successful business person, or a successful person in the realm of business of working and things like
Well,
that.
I was an employee, but what? Yeah, okay.
But you were good at it. You got
I had a
promotions
career.
and-
I had a career. Yeah.
yeah, and I think that's one thing that even though when I was younger, doing backstage work, you do a good job, you get called back again. You do a good job enough times, you get promotions. Or it's not necessarily promotions, but they teach you how to do lights. They teach you how to do videos. And I think for me, learning more stuff meant more jobs. More jobs meant stability. And so same thing when I came to Japan is, okay, it's not more stuff equals more jobs, but it's having the adaptability, or having the, oh, this thing happened. Can I change it? Can I not change it? And just simplifying it to two choices allowed me to kind of fit in, because it is. I go there and they say, well, this is how it is. And I go, why? And they go, that's how it is. Instead of getting mad about it or complaining about it, I say, okay, all right, here's my honko, boom. And then go like, just accepting I can't change everything. I can hit my head against this wall, but it's not going to change the wall, you know. Yeah. But whenever you first came, because you came in the 80s.
I visited a couple of times, 3 months in the late 70s and 3 months again in 1981. Then went back to think about life and stuff like that. Had the Japan dream, still had a steady career. And then at some point I was, you know, the thing we all do, it's not midlife crisis, but it said, you know, that thing, Dave, you've been thinking about this for years and years and years, it's time to, you know, poop or get off the pot, you know, whatever.
And
so,
that's one thing, when in your video you also talk about, you know, whenever you, I believe it was when you kind of first started doing woodblock printing, and you said, well, I do this, you know, I play instruments for a little bit and I do that. And you change your mind because you get, I don't want to say bored with things, but at the time you would change something and you said, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to make 100 prints, or, you know.
okay, so you're jumping ahead of yourself there. I know the
Yeah,
younger Dave tried this and did this well, tried this, did this well, tried this, did this well, all in the framework of, for a day job and to pay my rent, working through this music store.
Yeah.
But trying to be a performer, trying to be a guitar builder, trying to have my own jazz trio, composition, whatever. All of which was interesting, but didn't grab me enough, or I wasn't good at it enough, or didn't succeed at it enough. And through those years then, developing an interest in Japanese prints, there was no thought then that I am going to do this for the rest of my life. It was just something else I was trying. This is kind of cool, and it was getting good at, but that's just our story that had been repeated any number of times. So the thing you're mentioning there, that I need to make something in my life work, that didn't come until after we'd been in Japan 3 years. We'd been here 3 years already. So printmaking at that point was still, it was the next thing to try.
And that's, so yeah, I kind of got my timelines confused, but there was a moment when you realized, because in the video you said, do I have the, what was it? Do I have
The man in the
balls?
mirror.
Yes,
the
the man,
talking
and
about.
so
yes.
when that moment came, I guess, how did you, because I think,
Okay, but it ties together. Like I said,
Yeah.
try this, try this, try this, try this. There's a you start, the clock starts to run out on you. You know, when you're 18, you try to fail, do something else. When you're 21, try to fail, just do something else. Who cares? It doesn't matter. The world doesn't care. You don't care. You've got time on your side. But by the time now I had been here for 3 years, I was getting good at the printmaking, still teaching English to feed myself, making wooden toys, doing translations, all this kind of stuff. I was now, the clock is running out. You know, you've got 2 kids now, and Dave, if you really do want to make a splash, if you're going to do something, it makes you feel that I really accomplished something fantastic. I think, Dave, you had better like maybe pick one of these things and get going on it. And that gradual maturity coincided with the idea that it was a print set of 100 prints to make. And that became the thing that, you know, wow, this would be the thing that I could use to, I can't say fulfill myself, but to wrap together those things I've been thinking about. Dave, you've got to get
like
going
this is a
on
project
something.
that
And there it was, the project was there. And that's 1989. So by now, I'm born in 51, 61, 71, 81. I'm now 38. And yeah, feeling that, okay, it's time to get serious with something.
about something.
So.
Whenever, you know, we've talked at length about whenever you first started those prints, you mailed out the flyers, the larger flyers and stuff. After the prints, after you made 100, obviously that's a huge accomplishment, a huge undertaking. How did you shift from, I guess even partially during the prints, how did you shift from this, when you went all in on the prints, when did you know this is the rest of my life type of thing? I mean, when did...
Has that been decided yet? Wait. No. Come on. It was, again, it was a big thing, something that I could really take on a challenge that I wasn't sure I'd be able to do. You know, the man in the mirror, you're chicken. No, it's okay. We'll do something. You're chicken shit.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I couldn't evade the guy in the mirror talking to me that. So I didn't know it was going to be the rest of my life. I still don't know. It was just, here is something big. Your clock is running out. You got 2 kids. You got to feed them. Dave, like I said, poop or get off the pot. Poop isn't the word we use, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
So that was it. Grab it. There's no life work here involved. At the end of the thing, that 10-year project, I heard this word every day. People would come to the exhibition, the media's there, NHK, blah, 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 blah. And it was the most single popular comment. How does it feel to have accomplished your life work? And I really...
Your life's not done. Yeah.
I counted it. Wait, I'm only like, whatever it was, 49 or something. Yeah. This isn't my life work. This was... And so it became a sarcastic thing to say, this isn't my life work. This is a dress rehearsal.
Yeah.
Now it starts. And it became, that actually became a true thing because I sort of made it up one day to say, and it became the reality. The next series was the one that when it's all said and done and I'm buried, they're going to look back at all the stuff I've done. That next series, the 5 years, the Surimono albums, that's something that really could be packaged as a, Jesus, look at that one man did that by himself to that quality level. That would be the kind of thing I would have been much more proud of than the Poet series, which was just simply a case of sitting on the chair long enough and getting the thing done long enough and just sticking with it. And lots of people can do that. But those 50 prints in that other series, they are a masterwork. No,
are they still able to be found, or is it?
No, my prints are long gone. I made 200 each one. They're gone. We use in the wood blocks. The wood blocks are used for the Mokuhankan printers to print in here. But the thing that I created, that set of 50 prints, no, that's.
In a rough estimation, how many prints do you think you've made?
I haven't the slightest idea.
That's okay. I didn't. Some people are very.
No idea.
They're keeping.
No. Well, the records are there. We could figure it out, but I don't have it. It's the thing, you know. What I feel I would like to honor is the feeling that don't look back. You know, the print that's of interest now is the one that's on my bench right now. Yeah. I would like to honor that, but also people who watch the stream know that I remember and tell these stories about something else I really like. So I do look back. Too much.
Is there a favorite print that you've bought that you own as a collector? Is there one print that makes you go, this is it?
Well, no, because the field is so wide and vast. There's many, many different things I would like to do and like to be able to do. So there's no specific single one. Of course, there are special prints that I picked up. I got lucky with her. Jeez, I'll never be able to do that. That comes back again and again. I've got now, I can't even count how many prints that I would never in my life be able to replicate that level of quality. But that's okay, because those prints are from a different era where it was all a very different story, different materials, different tools and stuff, and different, the carver who carved that did just carving since he was 12 years old, I sit here and waste time doing things like this, and I print and I run a business, and, so of course. So given that circumstance, that environment in which I live, my work on that line will never be the equivalent to the man who spent his whole life doing it. I can live with that. I have no problem.
I think that's a good. I think it's a very healthy mindset to have. That's me too. That when I look at other people who do, much more at a younger age. Especially in the realm of content creation, I see young people with millions and millions of followers, and it's like, and sometimes I think
millions. Is that what you're aiming? Is that what you
want? No. But I would be lying if sometimes there's not a hint of.
Okay, instead of millions and millions of followers, there's people out there who are doing a really, really good job at it. And you think, man, if only I could do it that well.
That's what I'm looking for. But again, there's not. I think for me, even the guys who do it really, really well, I think for me, I come from this thing of hard work equals success, even if that's not the reality anymore.
Welcome to the world, Jason. Welcome.
But and that's why. So I'm focused more on doing things I want to do, and this is the same thing that whenever people ask me about walking.
So even if success didn't come, it would have still been worthwhile to do it. Is that what you're getting at?
Yes, and that's and I think that's why I'm also picking projects that I want to do. Period. Walking the Tokaido, walking across Japan, see the summit of Fuji or whatever I'm deciding to do. It's something that I would have done regardless.
Okay, can I be a little bit of a smartass here? I'm
Absolutely.
sorry. We have a little bit of, I've got a bit of experience. I think perhaps you're overthinking some of this too much. I mean, clearly you're this kind of character, and I'm not insulting you because I see a lot of myself in there too, because I was worried about stuff I shouldn't have been worried about. I overthought things, and we are who we are. We can't change that DNA, but just like let it go. You're doing a decent thing. You've got good goals. Just let it go. Stick to your.
It's funny. We've chatted several times, and overthinking is my middle name. And I think that this is where I'm finally, especially with this next project. It's so long. I mean, it's not 10 years, but whenever I look into the scope of anything I've done previously, I mean.
And there's a question, are you going to be able to do this? This is not a dead certain thing. This is a challenge
and
you may not be able to complete. Okay.
And that's another thing too.
But again, don't sweat it. Make your plans. Do your planning. Make your notes.
That's the beauty of it, is that I've accepted this time that, last time I was kind of on a time crunch or a relative budget crunch. That was all
training. It's all training. I mean, when you look at this from 30 years later, this will all just be blurred together as the early days be. Don't sweat it.
So that's where I'm at, though. It's where I'm at the point of saying, okay, I will just do what I can, maybe push a little bit harder than I should sometimes, but always try to do what I want to do. And I think this is. So my next question is in regards to whenever you shifted from. I know I'm jumping, but. When did you know, okay, making woodblock prints was a you/family thing into making it the zaibatsu that Mokuhankan is today? When did you know it was something that had to be grown or had to be expanded?
There's no single moment. And the thing is, remember, I said a minute ago that before we came to Japan, we had a plan. We made the spreadsheets. It was a plan, but it was a very short-term plan. How are we going to survive? How are we going to, teach English 3 days a week, Thursday starting at 5:30 in the afternoon? When we had that plan to get on the ground and get up and running, there was no plan at that point for Mokuhankan and YouTube. Just to keep this perspective in mind, it's grown and matured and developed along the way as I've grown. I would never, if you'd have caught me at the end of the poet series, when I'd finished that 10-year series, the thing I was talking about a few minutes ago, if you had told me at that moment, Dave, let me tell you a little scene from the future. There's going to be a building in Asakusa with a big sign out front, and you're going to have 32 employees, and your gross revenue each year is going to be what, and that you're going to sleep X hours a day, I would have just laughed at you. I would have said either in your dreams or in your nightmares. I don't know what viewpoint would have been. Because what I'm doing now is nothing at all what I expected to be doing. And of course, I'm now 72. At that time, I was 39 or whatever it was. You make your plan, you do what you're trying to do, and of course, nobody knows where it's going and what's going to happen. Keep your eyes open as things change. This thing called the internet came along, so of course, grab it and use it as it comes. There's no life plan in that sense. Things evolve as you go along, Where I'm going to go, I still got lots to do.
It's next question, and maybe it's a secret, but what's the next step for yourself or Mokuhankan? I know I've heard of exhibit rooms or cafe or.
I'm not going to tell you what the plan is to what we're going to make and what we're going to do. The next challenge for me, the next thing that I have got to sort out, is how to get this business into a situation where it has a chance of survival post David, because. Something has gone, I was going to say it's gone terribly wrong here. Something has happened that I didn't plan. Is it okay to talk about myself here? Or
absolutely.
Is that why we're here?
We're here for you.
We've been hearing your life story.
No, we're here for you.
Okay, to roll this back then. It would be when I was 59. I'm 72 now, so this is 13 years ago or so. When I was 59, I had one of these, not a life crisis, but it was a decision point. There was a flag in the ground and a left and a right. Dave, you're going to be 60 next year. It's time to think about something like, where are you going to go from here? I was wonderfully successful, wonderfully happy. My family is grown up and gone. They're out. I was making these beautiful prints, had a nice workshop, the river, you blah, 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 blah. Couldn't ask for more. But sitting there thinking, unfortunately, I'm going to be getting old. I'm here good 59. I'll be 60 next year, a little bit of a milestone. I'm okay. 65, no problem. I'll eat that up with no problem. 70, I'll probably be okay. you point me, what's my plan for that era? So I thought there's two ways to do this. Keep on doing what you're doing. Keep your workshop here, keep making prints, just follow your nose and do what you're going to do. The fear, though, is that at some point you're going to become this little old man in this house surrounded by garbage, and people walk by and there's where that funny foreigner lives and, makes those prints. I may be 99 or, but that's the end game there. The other game then, when I'm 59, I thought, what I could do starting next year when I'm 60, I'll keep making prints, but how about we did this? Gathered around a few young people and sort of people that were interested, tried to train them on this, started doing cooperative printmaking. Remember, up until then, I trace, I cut, I print, I sell. I do everything by myself. Get some other people and let's do it like it was done in the old days. I can publish prints, let's do this. Somebody could design, somebody can carve, somebody could print. If I could spend 10 years, and this was my calculated, reasoned guess, if I spent 10 years gathering a few people around, let it grow, we'll maybe have a workshop. And after 10 years, I've built this workshop, and we can say, guys, there you guys go. You can move to the future. And I will sit in one corner of that workshop and be a member of that team. And that will be my end game. As I get older and less able to take care of myself, the team and this organization would, not wipe my bum, but whatever, they would be there, take care of me as I move forward. It has gone that way. We now have a wonderful organization. It's world famous. It's good. There's 32 people as of 33 next week, whatever. There's 30x people working here. The problem is the idea after 10 years we could put it aside and then I'll go and just work in one corner. It hasn't worked that way. It has become, I use this word a little bit foolishly perhaps, it's become a kind of a cult. It turns out that all the people who see our work don't just want the woodblock prints, they want a piece of this guy. I don't mean to say it in a bad way. We've done this so well, and we've told the story so well and made prints that are so beautiful, but they don't stand on their own. They're beautiful to people because of the story of their creation in the sky. So I'm not able to actually stand back and go and sit in that corner and do that. Partly because the organization is still too young. It's not able to stand and run by itself yet. And partly because of this cult thing that's developed. People come in the door day after day after day. They don't head for the prints. They head for you. They want to head for me. And this is gloriously, wonderfully, my head just swells every day. It's trouble to get my hat on, that's my point being. So of course it's wonderfully a happy thing to have happened to me, but it doesn't bode well for the future of this organization. So to roll the conversation back, to challenge me right now, my next big job is to somehow try and put this organization on a stable footing where it will have a chance of survival. What did I say? Post Dave, And the analogy, and I might get criticized for this or feeling a bit pretentious, the kind of analogy is if you work back a decade or so to Steve Jobs and Apple. All of us outside that thing thought, oh, he's got cancer, oh my God, he's going to die. That's it, that's the end of the day, because he's the guy. That whole thing runs around that glowing heart at the center of that place. It didn't happen. It may happen, whatever, but fine, we've got 10 years now to show that it didn't happen, because what he did was he managed to create a culture that sort of honors the same kind of things that he honored. Not 100%, it's not the same company as it was when he was there, but he put a culture in place that meant he could get out of there or be taken out of there. And some competent people, some competent philosophy, and an ability and a framework in place to do this properly. Now, we're no Apple, we're not, but the point being the same. I should be working every day to make sure that the people working here, they grok what I grok. They have the same ethics and things about looking at prints. And they do, the people working here. Now, they see me get a patch prints. That's okay, that's okay. No, that's no good, that's no good. That's okay, that's okay. Dave, what's going on? I show them why I think this is no good and why I think that's okay. Try and bring them to the same vision that I hold for what this company could be, perhaps should be.
This is maybe going to be a complicated question, but this is kind of a bit more business. Like, hiring people can be very difficult. Interview processes or just same wavelength, things like that. I'm biased here,
no, I succeed and I fail.
You do a pretty solid job. Is that people coming to you?
You just don't know. We've had huge failures. I'm sorry, we've had huge failures.
So with that said, though, how a lot of the people I see maybe again my framework is very limited of what I get to see here, but you do a pretty good job. When you do interview people, what makes how can you tell if
No, we're not big enough to have an HR department that have that kind of structure. The people who mostly work here are people who bumped into us, they hear about us, they've come in. We don't have a structure for this. There's no sit down, let's have an interview. There's no formal structure for this. We don't even look at resumes. I'm not interested in seeing someone's resume. Where did they go to school? What did they do? I don't care. They sit down. And what I want to see in a person is, one, I want to feel that I'm in the presence of a happy person, a person who is in their own life is basically an optimistic kind of person rather than a pessimistic kind of person. That's what I want to see first. What I want to see second, there is no second.
I think optimism is, in this might be, I think optimism's getting
happiness.
hard.
A person who is
happiness.
enjoying life to some extent. They're not always happy. I mean, my God, I'm not always happy. But the person being that in general, as far as you can measure it, they look forward to what they're doing. They want to be doing something interesting. So when I say optimistic, it's a one-word catch-all for a bunch of things wrapped up together. What I want to develop, and we pretty much have this here, where the people come to work each morning and they're happy to get here. They're not coming in, it's Monday morning,
Like,
You're happy to get here. And then also at 5:30, when they do leave, you saw them here actually. Can you believe that this is a company in Japan, 5:30 bell rang, and they were gone.
Yeah.
It wasn't always that way. When we had started hiring people, they wouldn't go home because I'm still here. I had to get no, it's okay, I'll work, get out of here. But what I was trying to say was that when they do leave at 5:30, when they leave at 5:30, and second, they're still smiling.
Yeah.
And you've hung around here a lot. So I want them coming in happy, come up the stairs happy. It's not always happy. There's things here that it's not some perfect paradise of a company to work. And we have problems, and we have some human relations that don't always go well. But as much as possible, bring them in happy, give them satisfying work to do, and have them happy when they go home.
Yeah,
and take those holidays.
Do you have difficulties enforcing that, or do you have difficulties enforcing that, or
I did, but no, now it's set. No, it's set. Now the culture is set.
Because that's one thing that blew my mind. I used to teach English at the time show at Ministry of Finance, and I would always ask. At some point, there would be a lesson about vacation days or something. And it's like, so how many vacation days does everyone get? And they go, we get 20 days.
We don't want to talk about this.
And I go, how many do you take? And they go, maybe 5?
Or -5. They work 5 extra days they shouldn't have worked. Well, we all know about how it works. Yeah. It's changing very, very slowly from here because I'm a foreigner running this case. That ground rule was in place from day one. From day one. There's a bit of a paradox there, where if you were a really sort of sharp interviewer here who had lots more experience, at this point you would poke me and say, wait a minute, Dave. There's this saying which we know all around the world in any culture. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. So hold that thought in your mind. We've also seen over the past couple of decades, or few decades, examples of foreign companies coming into Japan, knowing that they have a different business method. We'll show them how to do it. Because the Japanese, for example, retail system is full of inefficiencies and stuff like this. So a foreign company might come in and say, we know how to, do this properly. And there's example of both ways. Foreign companies coming in and just not being able to make it work in Japan. And the question I'm trying to put on the table here is, how much does a foreigner coming in say, we're going to do it my way because I know how to do it better than you? As in the example I just said, you are going to take your holidays, everybody. You're going to go home at 5 o'clock, no overtime. As a foreigner, that's the way we do it in Canada, Germany, England, whatever, as much as possible. So I've brought this in and said, that's how we're going to do it. But having said that, that's a policy that was able to be transplanted here. But if I came in and tried to speak to my employees the way that I spoke to employees in Canada, I wouldn't have lasted a week. So I've got to be Japanese and feel Japanese and read the room and get what's going on. And this is the most difficult thing I have undertaken in my 72 years to date, by far. Nothing to do with printmaking, nothing to do with carving, nothing to do with music composition, anything. It's managing this group of 30 people who are Japanese and who are foreigners and who have a foreign leader here, living in the middle of a Japanese culture. And man, I would not recommend this to anybody.
That's one thing I think when I have, contracts with various companies and I look at who's the management or how's the structure, and it is, oh, is this more of a Japanese company? Okay, then I need to do things more of the Japanese way. Oh, it's run by a non-Japanese person. Okay, I can not necessarily relax, but it's not as tight as, the pressure's not there. When, obviously, you've been in business for a little while, do you have any advice for people who want to take that jump from, again, when you first started making block, and I know woodblock is a very niche field, I would say. I think it's safe to say. But starting out on your own, because a lot of people in Japan, they're the salary man, salary woman, and so did you feel a lot of resistance starting out on your own?
Get to the point. Sorry, Jason.
No, you're good. I'm talking around it. Do you have any advice for people who...
You're trying to mix up three or four questions all at the same time.
I'm trying to make it a multi-layered, But do you have any advice for people? Because I think a lot of people in the U.S. as well, I don't know, but I know they're disillusioned with, and we've talked about this before, being shackled to a company, but then, you've also talked about now that...
Okay, I'll try and get the point you're trying to say. Remember, there's no single story here. I did come as a single person. I wasn't thinking entrepreneur. I wasn't thinking startup. The world wasn't like that. I wanted to simply make prints. At that time, I didn't understand much about the traditional Japanese printmaking, which was teamwork. One guy carved, one guy printed. All I know is that I want to make prints, which I assumed meant I would make prints. I learned very quickly that I wasn't able to actually create the art part that's the first step necessary to making prints and feeding my kids with it. And I sort of came to a slow realization about that the first few years while I was teaching English happily in my classroom there to feed the kids. So that became the first problem. That sort of image I had wanted to do as a solo person doing this wasn't actually possible as a solo person in the traditional way. So again, not seeing then what I have now, but stumbling forward step by step. The way to move forward at that point was to, I don't need to make my own art because there are traditional Japanese prints. I can take some of the old Japanese prints, there's no copyright on them, and I can do the part that I like. Chop wood, print, and maybe if somebody would like to take this thing. So I fell into that luckily because I was able to I had enough of the physical skills to do this and package the thing together and present it as this Canadian making Japanese prints. And I realized I didn't have to do the drawing, which I was no good at. So that's the first step of this, all as a single person doing actually a different bunch of people's jobs all together. 2, 3, 4 years, have exhibitions, do a newsletter, and I realized I'm now a businessman, I'm doing accounting. I was ending up actually doing 10 different jobs all by myself because that was the way to make a living as a solo independent, we would now say entrepreneur, but I wasn't thinking entrepreneur, I was just a guy trying to make a living. But it was just one man doing what you had to do to make it happen. So to try and get that question you asked in focus there,
Whenever that same thing. When I was young, I started pushing boxes at 16, doing backstage work, and I realized, okay, this is now. I was sole proprietor is the tax term in the U.S. and I quickly learned okay, again, more skills, and then okay, I have to do my own accounting for tax purposes, even at a young age. And I think that's one reason why when I came to Japan, I didn't just join an eikaiwa and then just grind it out or join a company and grind it out. For me, I knew kind of quickly after coming here, I would not enjoy grinding it out, salaryman life.
Being an employee or being told what to do.
Being told what to do consistently. Obviously, if you have contracts with companies, you have obligations, but that's...
Okay, but then when you think the wider part, the people who are watching this, I don't even know where they are, what country they are in, what age they are. There is these days, there are so many more options to us. In the old days, it was you go to school, you come out, you get a job, and you do this. Some very small percentage of people went to school and then started a company or did something. These days, that option is wide open and available to anybody. But my guess is the number of people say, let's take graduating from school as the sort of start point for this decision. Am I going to work for somebody? Am I going to be a solo person, whatever? there's no training for this. And our whole education system, based right from kindergarten all the way up, is still expecting people to come out of school and become sort of, not a factory worker, but become a worker of an employee. There's almost no training, either technically or accounting-wise or whatever, or mentally preparing this person for being the solo entrepreneur. And if I was, designing a new education system for the planet or whatever, step one, TNT, blow up those concrete buildings, whatever. And step two, develop a curriculum where young people, as they're maturing and becoming young and learning the language and becoming teenagers and learning how to socialize and all that stuff, they were also learning things about different options for making a living in a society that is so flexible and changing. So I'm sorry, I got long story short, but that's it. There's no training for us to be entrepreneurs or to be solo things. And there's no expectation that this is a legitimate career path. Although nowadays, I guess, more and more and more it is.
I mean, that's, I agree with you, especially with education. One thing, when I came to Japan, my first job was Kodomo kids English, and I was, of course, very American brain of, when I get to Japan, everyone will speak some English because that's what we're taught. Not high level, but if I say hello, how are you, people will respond. And I learned on the plane from Vancouver to Tokyo that that's not the case. And I think a lot of that also has to do with education. And many of my clients ask me, well, aren't all Americans good at debating?
Jason, what you're describing is not a bug, it's a feature. You came here originally, you were going to be teaching language, then that's it. The people are dysfunctional. This is the world's gorgeous, biggest, wide open opportunity on the planet. And I fell into this. We came here in 1986. I went to a local language school to get a job. And they said, sorry, guy, out. I didn't have a degree, didn't have all that stuff. And so I thought, okay, plan B, let's do this. And that's the best thing that ever happened to me. We opened a little Kodomo Eikaiwa. And the idea wasn't to train them for their next examination. It was to sit together in a tatami room, and there were kids and a guy who had a beard, and learn that they're just all human beings and talk together. So that's it. Get the words out of their mouth, and that's what I spent 5 years doing. Really, really quite successfully, and having a ton of fun.
That's. I mean, one thing I've been teaching / coaching whatever for 8 years now, kids, and then government, and then now. Executives and doctors and things like that. But I like helping. I like teaching, and I think some people look at English teaching as and I'm sure you're just an English teacher. You're just in the foreigner bubbles. It's you're an English teacher or you're a recruiter. Those two things, maybe. But do you ever feel that?
Well, I have no shame that I did that for the first 4 years here.
I mean that people who do it for long term. I guess people who do it for if you talk to someone and they say
value to society.
That's good. So I think some people, when I talk to them, because I've been teaching for 8 years, and they go,
because you're fair, you only teach. Okay, well, whatever. That's your own self-image. I don't know.
But I say I like it, and
For me, if we weren't able to sell prints, and after 40 years I was still teaching English and then selling one print a year, then that would be an abject failure. Of course, that's not my self-image.
Yeah, that's not what you want.
For me, I had the plan. I taught English because we hit the ground running and taught English, and then started selling print. The overlap. 86 we came, 89 sold the first print, 91 closed the English school. So it sort of worked out as a good plan. But I have no disrespect for English teachers.
Well, I didn't mean to imply that you did, but I think that some people do view it as, you didn't, move on to something else, or you didn't, and I think maybe that's because I stayed in and I plan to stay in. But when it comes to running, now that you said you do 10 jobs, but you're the CEO of Mokuhankan, you're the leader. Do you feel that there's more pressure for you to run the business than do the carving that you originally set out to do? Did you find yourself spending more time doing the boss things?
If you've seen, many of your people probably have seen it, but the last video I put out at the end of last year showing our current situation, you've seen we're in the process of explosive growth at the moment. And that means my days are taken up with business management, firefighting more than I'm supposed to be firefighting, and the amount of time I can get back at my bench actually doing carving work is really, really very limited these days. Be careful what you wish for, because you might get it. You know, I started a company, and it's gloriously, gloriously successful, and coming along with that has been a stunning amount of work. It goes back to what I said a few minutes ago. My next job really is to get this place stable, which means hiring in people that will do more of these things. I don't think we're going to be able to hire a CEO, but I could certainly maybe a general manager or a PA or something and get me back to the bench if I can make this happen. A pessimistic view is I'm sort of failing at this. I'm floundering too much, as if you'd have come in a couple of hours earlier today. Or we're all on track and we are growing stably, and bit by bit as people join, I will be able to step back. I don't know. Both things are true. I'm floundering, which is true, but we're growing spectacularly. So I'm not sure where it's going. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, that's, I mean, I think that's, it's, as you said, you know, be careful what you wish for. And we've talked about working, building up through a company. You and I have talked about this privately before, but feeling shackled, and how I felt shackled to this, and then you are, how people feel tied to a company, tied to a job, tied to a posting. Wait
a minute, I mean, I'm tied to this because I started it, and there's 30 people working here. There are people now that are getting married together. There are X number that are pregnant here at the moment. There are people who actually now depend on my actions for their daily life. Now, I got to be careful how seriously I take this. Oh my God, 32 people. If I had a stroke tonight, they're all going to be starving on the street. That's not true, because they are competent people, and in this current environment, they will be able to get work other places. But I can't be too cavalier about this. Oh shit, we can close this down. You go find something else. I can't do that. They are depending on me to build this thing into a stable, you know. We all know it's not Toyota. It's a little company run by one foreigner, you know, renting a little place here. So they have no sort of job security in that sense. But they expect me to do what I can to make this thing happen, of course. And I feel that is one of my, at my age now, a very, very, very heavy responsibility. And if you'd asked me decades ago, when you're 70-something, will you be in this situation? I would have laughed at you. I will never, ever let myself get into that kind of a stupid situation. I'll take care of my responsibilities. And by the time I'm 70, my God, by the time I'm 60, it'll all be settled and I will be enjoying myself, productively doing things. And here I am, I'm 72, still paying into pension. You know, I mean, what? That's not how it's supposed to happen. Like I said, be careful what you build and be careful what you wish for.
What do you think has been the biggest attribute or characteristic for yourself that has, I would consider you very successful on many fronts. You know, you mentioned that you were successful.
I have a wide ranging skill set. Yeah, absolutely.
How did you get to that point where you are good at, I don't want to say any, not the Midas touch, good at everything type of thing, but how did you, what personality, because for me, I think I'm stubborn.
What is he leading up to here? You know,
I'm
how
very
can I
stubborn.
answer this question?
My success is based on my stubbornness, I think. For you, you're successful in quite a different, in a wide variety of things throughout your years. Is there something you say, I am stubborn, or I am smart, I'm planful, like what do you think
how
has
can I
led
answer
to
this question honestly? No, I mean, this, seriously, you've asked this and I am sitting here. I'm a pretty smart guy. I mean, whatever I can, over through my life, the pattern's been whatever I've tried to do, I'm able to do it fairly well. This is DNA, or it's whatever you call it, IQ or EQ or whatever all these numbers are. I'm a pretty competent person. I'm not always the most organized person, but I'm pretty competent. And I think, I'm sorry, see this, can you get me in trouble here?
No.
What I want to think, what I want to believe, and when I look in the mirror brushing my teeth, I want to believe that I'm a normal person in the sense that the kind of things I've done, any normally competent person could do.
Yes.
And yet sometimes the evidence is against this, that the skill set I have really is so wide-ranged and varied that I really don't know if I could say, hey, you want to try this, it'll be good, follow your dream, you'll be successful. I don't do that anymore because I've had experience now with some of my English students back 40 years ago. where me and my wife, we said this to some people, and they tried it, and they fell flat on their ass. So I no longer do that anymore, because I'm not so confident that Mr. Random there has the same versatile skill set that this Mr. Random happens to have.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
No. That's I feel very. We talked about it earlier. What is the 1 in 10, 1 in 100, 1 in 1,000 that stay, and
that's another aspect. But so.
But I think that's again knowing, because that's one thing is, as I get older, and I think a lot of it has to do with me reading The Road to Sasaka. He passed away when he was early 40s, but he took the trip when he was 30. I'm taking the trip when I'm 30, 31. So I think about, as I get old, like I don't want to say what makes me different, because again, I'm just a regular guy from...
He's overthinking again. You're thinking too far ahead in advance. I'm sorry. I'm
not
trying to be the jerk here.
Yeah, no, you're not being a jerk. It's
Jason, you've done a bunch of stuff already. You're on an interesting path. I know. Just keep it up. Keep it up. I don't know if you're going to be successful. None of us know. None of us can say. It could be, and I'm totally don't know the answer to this. It could be that one reason that this side of the conversation here has a pretty good track record, has been successful. There just could be something in my personality that a bunch of people out there, I think I want to follow that. I want to follow that guy. Now, whether you've got that or not, I don't know, and it's none of my business, and you and I don't even know yet. It could be that you could work as hard as you could and do these things, and somehow it just won't click because the people out there, just whatever. Or maybe it's there, and I can't help you with that, and you can't help you with that.
Yeah, that's okay.
Just do this stuff. Do it as well as you can. I'm sorry. It sounds like I'm being a bit of a dick.
No. You're absolutely. Again, this is something that I've accepted, that I just have to throw the pasta at the wall and see if it sticks.
Well, no, planning and everything else. Of course. It's not a random.
Just
whatever. Get busy. You're doing this. You've got a tracker. You did the Tokaido. It wasn't. Before he did this, he was in here a while ago, going around Tokyo, coming here. He says, "Think about the Tokaido." And we're like, big talk, But you did this.
I did it.
You did this. So I'm full of admiration for this.
It's whenever we talk about setting goals. It's because the it factor, we don't know, and this is something that you asked me that. You asked me that when I came back from the Tokaido. You said, do you have the are you interesting enough to get the audience, to keep
really?
The audience?
Did I say this? Did I ask you this?
Yeah.
Well, we can't answer. We don't know. But okay.
No,
it's a rhetorical question. Yes,
like,
it was rhetorical.
Do you think that
yes,
you? Yes,
because you had a plan of saying it will depend on whether this is there or not, and I can't answer it at this point. So.
But okay. It was it was a rhetorical question of you asking me, and you said, Jason, do you think you've got what it takes to hold an audience? And then I went home and thought, well, do I? But
only one way to find out. And so far you're doing it. So I'm full of admiration. There's lots of people I meet who have plans, and we see them in my email every day of the week. There's lots of plans, and tell me how to do this, and can you help me with this? You don't do that. You just get out there and do stuff. So I'm
That's one thing with the Tokaido too. I did a decent amount of planning, and then I didn't. The big problem with Tokaido is I didn't make as much content as I wanted to. Obviously, I streamed it all, but I really. It's so historical. I mean, I don't know how much of, but I was too busy huffing and puffing up mountains to...
See, before you did it, it wasn't clear, but after you did it, it was crystal clear to me. You did the wrong project.
Yeah.
You just said A to B. I got it. I did it. I got to B. And that wasn't the project.
Yes.
The project should have been take us with you on an interesting journey to show us some neat stuff. And all we saw was truck exhausts.
No, you're right. It's still down there somewhere, I'm sure, hacking it up. But it is, I think, again, that's something that I couldn't have known.
That's why I'm laughing. It's why I'm laughing.
It's
okay.
And it's very interesting because, I'm reading books right now, and
he doesn't know it yet. He's going to do the Tokaido again. We're not sure when. It might be 5 years from now, might be 10 years from now, might not be when he's 72. He's going to do it again, and it'll be a different story. Look at his eyes.
I think it'll be Kyoto to Tokyo this time.
Whatever.
I've already overthinking
backwards.
No, I have to get through this first one. Well, and that's the thing is, with this next trip, I was like, because it is, if you go the south route, Hiroshima, Fukuyama, Okayama, Himeji, there's so many, but then I go, well, no one really goes to the back, go to Hagi, or Izumo is obviously huge, but they're very, very famous. But I think for me, I want to go on a journey. I want to see these things. And then obviously taking people with me is a new aspect of it. I would have done this, rereading people who've done, there have been a few people who've walked across Japan. A couple of them have written about it. And I think part of it too is I want to see, do I have the same, I'm curious if I have the same, because again, I reread the Road to Sata this weekend, and there's a...
Might not be the best thing to do at this point.
Okay, I'm going to put it down.
How about this idea?
Yeah.
Something I read X months ago, whatever. It was something came in my morning news feed. It was a biologist or something, somewhere in, I think it was the American Midwest. They were doing an experiment. They got the prairies, whatever, and they counted species of whatever that was in the 1 meter square. And then somebody there said, okay, let's dig deeper, whatever. And they got their thing, and whatever it was 1 square meter or a yard, because it was America, whatever. And they dug down and dug down. And you know where the story's going. They found 10 million more species than they expected to find. I don't know the number. I'm making this up. So there, you say, what route should I take? There's the Hiroshima, there's Izumo Taisha, whatever, the famous high spots there. But there could be an idea on the table here that no matter what quiet back road it was, no matter what little village that nobody had ever been to before, when you're there, and if you spend the time and dig a little bit and dig a little bit and dig a little bit, that there's nowhere in this country, nowhere on this planet, whatever, at the middle of the Sahara Desert, I don't know, that doesn't have interesting content to be dug up and found.
It's also just interesting people. Like I remember one of the most interesting conversations I had was at Fuji Station, Fuji Eki, on the
Tokaido you're talking about.
During the Tokaido, I was walking, and then there's not actually Fuji Shuku, it's Yoshiwara, and you walk to. But I was staying around Fuji, and I was just at a restaurant with a woman, and she was running it, and it was late, and she had a ton of vinyl. I mean, you name it. But we just talked music and we talked stuff, and it's again. Okay,
there will be serendipitous, interesting things, but the journey you're planning now is going to go through a lot of backcountry where there's not so much going on, and a bit of advanced planning. You know, I don't mean now, but a little bit of research. There's two ways to look at this. You know, when I was still on NHK's roster for the Journeys in Japan program, this is long ago, I'm long ago laid off from those guys. But when I was still doing the Journeys in Japan programs, the guy would phone me up and say, are you free 3 days next, 2 weeks or so? And I'd say, yes, where are we going? And he'd say, okay, I'll tell you where we're going, because we meet at Haneda Airport, and we're going to fly out there. We're going to go to Tendo in Yamagata. And because I know the rules and he knows the rules, he didn't have to tell me this. But in the early days I worked for them, they would say this: we're going to Tendo in Yamagata. We're going to send you the rough book outline of what's going on, and don't look it up, okay? I'm like, well, yeah, no, I want to do some research, find out what's going on up there, so I can talk properly. He said, don't you do this. Because what they wanted was not a blank slate. What they wanted was a person to go in there and see things.
Reaction.
Look at this, and first reaction, be honestly able to react to this and ask interesting questions, what's going on. So the idea was, don't study in advance. But if you do this through your next things, there's going to be lots of small villages there where they're, and a bit of cooking up and seeing what questions you're going to be able to ask might be worthwhile.
Well, and this is something, and this is why another reason, because some people have asked me, why now? Why do you, because after such short, I just got back, I finished Tokaido on November 26th, and now I'll be leaving April 12th or whatever. Why short succession? But, I think one thing I also noticed during the Tokaido, a lot of the old Minshuku, a lot of the old places are shuttered. They're not, in the countryside areas, that's why some days I had to walk 35, 40 kilometers.
We know, of course.
But a lot of those areas too, it's even young people. There were sometimes I wouldn't see anyone under the age of 30.
If you were 18 years old now, would you be living in? You wouldn't. No. You'd get to the city. Of course, this is a structural problem that this society, I have not got the answer. If I was king of Japan right now, oh God, here's people, here's what we're going to do tomorrow. Let me think about this tonight. I don't have a master plan for this.
Well, and that's I think.
Actually, I do. But that's a different story.
If I waited too much longer, it would get much more difficult to even
It
have
would be a
talents to
different-
talk to
it
people.
would be a different kind of
It would
trip,
me
yes.
walking through ghost towns,
Yep.
and it wouldn't be me hopefully talking to people about their town.
Okay, well, maybe this is part of the hook to hang this hat on of this trip. It's I can't over dramatize this, but maybe this is the last chance at certain parts of this rural Japan before they are totally depopulated to zero. Now that might put more of a negative mood to this trip than you want. Here we are day after day after day, we're looking at wind blowing the weeds, all that kind of stuff. I don't think you would want to do that as a theme for your trip, but it will absolutely be a recurring motif in this trip. There were 50 people living in this town 10 years ago, and now there's nobody there, so.
Yeah, there were a lot of, especially throughout the mountains of Shizuoka, little, 50 house towns, but you walk through them and you go.
And we understand why. If you were there, you would not want to live there if you were 18 years old, of course not.
Even, I can't imagine, that's another thing, the people who do live there are usually significantly older, and I walked the only road to that city, and there's not even a conveni for 10 kilometers. I don't know how.
This is modern Japan.
Yeah. Out of, so you've done a lot of traveling. Well, where in Japan is most memorable?
I actually haven't done much traveling at all,
you've traveled some with
I said before, well, that's just one. The 3 months we came here when I was still working in a music store, I took a 3-month leave of absence after developing a computer system. And we traveled Tohoku and back. The second time we went to the Key Hanto area and back. But since I moved here, we hit the ground running in 1986, opened the English school. I haven't actually.
Is there any place you would like to go that particularly tickles your fancy?
No, I'm just tomorrow morning I want to be here and
I understand
doing my job. Never been to Hiroshima, haven't been past Himeji. I'm not an itch. I've emigrated twice, but it might be a paradoxical thing to say. I'm a double immigrant, whichever way I want to look at it. But no, I'm a homebody, I guess.
One thing I want to, and this is a shift from what we've been talking about a little bit, but obviously you mentioned earlier that you are growing, Mokuhankan's growing, but also, you're very large on Twitch, very large on YouTube. Considering that it's not something
large niche, okay.
Yes,
and we're not Mr. Beast here.
But you have amassed again a pretty large following. Considering at the basis it was educational woodblock prints, talking about woodblock prints. You have become a content creator. Is there any? In the future, do you want to try any other forms of more radio shows, or not necessarily different, but is there ever a day where you do more?
Get to the point.
Yes. Is there ever a day where you?
Sorry, guys.
Do more like a radio show.
This is informal enough to be like this.
No.
So where am I going to take this, and what more can I do with this?
Is there something you want to, or do you want to keep it?
Yes and no. Yes, no. Yes and no. I know social media. There's all these different things. New frameworks and stuff pops up all the time. I can say some of this now. Things I've learned now that I didn't know back at the beginning. We have chosen now, for example, where YouTube is very important to us. Twitch has become very important to us. Facebook is irrelevant to us. I don't do X, Twitter. I've never opened an account. Why not? Because, for example, the Twitter thing, that's a good example as opposed to Twitter is cool for being smart and, hey, look at me, wasn't that cool? And the thing you say is gone. The thing I made and put on YouTube, I get emails in any given day. People have seen a video that I put up there 10 years ago, and they're seeing it for the first time. And they know it's 10 years old. They're not fooled by this. But the point being, it's a long form, and I didn't realize it, but the things I've put up there are actually valuable things to some people that will be valuable on an ongoing basis into a future that I cannot actually conceive of. Whereas the short form social media that we see, the instant, the thumb scrolling up the thing, is irrelevant. It's ephemeral and it's gone, and it's good. I'm a quick wit, so I could be really good on Twitter. I can smart ass comments, and I can come back and I could be there. But I don't want to be there. That's not the persona that I want to put out.
This is one thing I think you and I've discussed before. You asked me at a certain point, when I did the interview for the Tokaido, you said, do you want to do content creation full time? Is that your goal with things? And I remember at the time I was like, well, I don't know, it's like winning the lottery. But we talk about short form.
Well, you mean
content.
making a living doing
Making
it,
a living doing
not
it.
having to have a job on the side.
Yeah, exactly. Doing it full time. I mean, and I remember I was like, well, it's like winning the lottery, and you said, well, no, it's a legitimate thing. Do you want to do that? And I kind of ho-hummed, but it is, I think, for a lot of people, you are absolutely correct. I think the long form is also what I want to do, but I think nowadays the competition is so fierce that I feel for me, or for people less established than yourself, you almost have to be on the Instagrams or the TikTok. Do you feel that that's...
Okay, just a minute. We had to roll this back a minute.
Yeah.
You see me as a person that's sort of successful in social media at the moment, but just YouTube or whatever, we've got the followers, you mentioned this. I didn't come here to do social media. There's a content that happened. It's totally organic. We have a content that wasn't designed for social media. We make beautiful woodblock prints.
Of course.
And I don't want to use this word lucky, because the things that I have in my life, I don't think it's come to me from luck, whatever, blah, blah. But it is lucky that the thing that is the core thing that we do is also of interest to a bunch of other people. And it does match well that when you put it on social media in a presentable way, it does click out there. I didn't design social media. I didn't. When YouTube first started up, when I first read about them, you got these two boys, like that's gonna fly, And if I'd have had a chance to invest in it, I would have put my money 180 degrees anywhere else, because I didn't get it. And I think those two boys also didn't get it, but it was throw the past at the wall, So no. So if we are good at social media now, it's because we have rock solid, wonderful, beautiful, incredibly interesting organic content. Then the conversation we must have had a while ago, can you do this on social media? I hope what I said to you was, Jason, what's it going to be about? What's the content?
Yeah.
If you're thinking, I want to be the YouTube star, I had this conversation last month. I was in Canada visiting my family. I got to be careful what I say for somebody's privacy, because I had a difficult conversation with one of my grandsons. He's a teenager. Two of my grandsons, the older one, he's got his career plan worked out. I don't want to talk too much about what he's doing. He's got his career plan worked out. The second younger one doesn't, but it's okay. He's not worried about this, because he's going to be on social media. He's going to be an influencer, and he's going to have millions of followers, and he's going to have buckets of money. And okay, when I asked him, what's it going to be about? Didn't know.
That's so, because people ask me recently, some of my clients, they say, hey, I saw your Twitch videos, I saw you did the Tokaido, and the coworker sent it to me, and blah blah blah. Like, what's, do you want to be a YouTuber? And I go, no, but I love the behind the scenes. I love talking to people, and again, like you said, if those line up, that's great. I'm going to take these trips regardless, and I hope they're interesting enough that people.
Okay. Well, you are now. There's a wire between this mountain. You're walking out now. I didn't have to do that. I didn't have to take any risks at all. Content was there, and because I'm older, the content was there first. Social media came along. Excuse me, sorry, I haven't had dinner yet. But for you now, because there's no printmaking, the trips are a current thing. The content is going to be this man and his character and his personality. And you're still really kind of young here. I'm sorry, a lot of this is turning out to be this older dude being a pretentious jerk towards you. I'm sorry, but I think it's a relevant thing. If it turns out in the end that you are an interesting enough person, this thing will fly. I don't know this yet, and you don't know this yet, and the only way to find out, as you said, is to go ahead and do this. And you're not betting the farm. You're still so young that it doesn't matter if it didn't work out. Plan B. And you said you enjoyed teaching English too, so there's that. So again, at the risk of repeating myself here, don't overthink this too much. Just get out there on that wire. Get your pole, which is going to help you. Get your tools around you. You're studying. You've done your homework. You've got your proper mic connections that don't come loose. You've got your backup audio. You're doing this, as far as I can see, in a consumer pro level. At this level, you look like you're doing everything right, and time will tell.
And that's like you mentioned with your grandson, though, like I think when people ask me, they say, "Do you want to be a YouTuber, Jason? You want to be the next this person?"
I don't think that's the motivation. No.
It's something. I don't want to say two birds, one stone, because I feel that's a cop out. I don't want people to think I'm just half-assing content, but it is something that I realized a few people, and this is why I started streaming in the first place. I did a long interview with Therapy Gecko, and Therapy Gecko is he's huge, but I had about 5 people message me privately afterwards. I wasn't making content a year and 3 months ago, but I had 5 people message me and said, "Your story made me more comfortable with something I have to do." And that's why I did it, because I might never have 800 people watching me. But if there are 5 people that I helped have a less shitty day, I mean,
there's something else about this. You know, I used to work for the Mainichi newspaper organization as part of the early years here. You know, when I started making prints, I put out a little personal newsletter. This is paper stuff. This is before the internet. And one of the editors at the Mainichi newspaper, I used to send it to media people to help promote my work and stuff like this. And one of the editors saw the newsletter and called me up one day, called me in, we had an interview. He said, "Okay, do you want to be one of our columnists?" And this was the Mainichi, the one that comes out on Sundays. What's it called? The Mainichi Weekly or something like that. It's an English tabloid that goes in. And I joined the rotation of people writing columns on the front page there. It went well. People would send in their postcards, "Enjoyed David's story this week," or something like this. This is back in 1990. 92, 93, 94, whatever, I don't even remember the thing back there. And at one point, they gave me an offer of a column in the Mainichi Daily News. It's just a little column, and it had to have a little picture, which I drew, and it wasn't even just like 200 words or 180 words or something. You try and say something instantly at 200 words, and boy, oh boy, this is difficult. So I started doing this, and it was fun. They allowed me to write about the printmaking work. It wasn't supposed to promote my printmaking work, but they wanted this guy to write about his experiences and what he was doing in Japan. So it goes on 1 week. It's a 1-year deal. It started in April, we're going to finish next March. And I'm not a professional at this at all, so I could write this. And you know where the story's going at some point. Oh my God, deadline is for Sunday. We're going to fax this in, and I had no idea. And at that point, I didn't have an idea for the column, but I remembered something I had read years ago about some other columnist. I think it was Bob Greene, who used to write for the Chicago Sun-Times or something like this. I don't know. He talked in his column one day about how he hadn't come up with a good idea. So he talked about how difficult it was to find column ideas. It was a very self-referential column. He then talked about this later. His editor called him in and said, "Okay, Bob, I see this column. It looks like you've come to the end of your you got nothing else to talk about." He said, "I'll let this one go. But if ever again one comes across my desk where you talk about writing a column, instead of writing a column, if you talk about column writing, you are fired that day. Your job is to create content. Your job is not to tell us how difficult it is to create content."
Like getting very meta about it.
Yeah, whatever. And he said, "That's not what, and if you did this once or twice or 3 times, they can see he's got nothing left to say, and they will lose interest in you. They won't buy my newspaper. We're done. I want content from you. I don't want to hear you ever again talk about making content." And this is referential exactly. You and me now, we've talked a little bit about something in printmaking. We've talked a little bit about Tokaido. We've talked too much about the meta part of what we're doing. And if I was watching this, I think I might have tuned out at some point back there. Get to the point, you guys. Give me some meat. Tell us what you're doing. Tell us what you're, don't talk about social media.
I think, well, I mean, we've talked a bit, but I think a lot of it too is me asking you questions about.
I mean, it's maybe why you're here today. I don't even know. I'm sorry.
But whenever we talk about that, kind of again the meta and whenever you say, oh, you have deadlines and this idea of feeding the machine, so to speak, do you feel
the monster? They call feeding the monster. So, no, I failed. I know you've seen the number of YouTube videos I've made this last year has been very few because I've been firefighting here so much. So I have failed to feed the machine, to feed the monster. It's fun feeding it. I want to make more videos about what I do. I'm not in any sense feeling, oh, I got to make another video this week. I would want to be making videos every week.
Just other things,
I can't. I'm struggling. I'm failing in my responsibilities to life at the moment. Sorry about that.
No, I mean that's
There's
like you
so many stories. Oh my God, so many stories, so many ideas. Something we passed by a few minutes ago and just let it go. The 18-year-old who didn't want to live in that village, so of course he comes to Tokyo and Osaka. And I said, if I were king of Japan, I wouldn't know what to do. I think actually I do, I have a game plan. I have an image of how I think this society could be structured in a way to move forward into the rest of this century in an era of depopulation and climate stresses. And I actually have some ideas about how this could work. I was in a unique position. I'm not in a unique position, but how many people have had this experience? My first 5 years were in Britain, and I was sent when I was 2.5. I don't remember this, but I remember the effects of it. When I was 2.5, I was sent to a prep school for Cambridge. Middle class, working class parents had no money. My father's employer had chatted with me as a little toy. He had seen something there and he said, we've got to do something with this boy. And he ponied up the money to send me to a prep school. And I wasn't even 3 years old. And the future would be, he would then go to here, he'll go to Cambridge, and he will be a potential prime minister. You will join the blah, 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 blah. None of that happened because economics changed and my parents had to leave England suddenly when I was 5. But the point I'm trying to make is I had an interesting grounding in that for 3 of those very early years, I was put into a situation where I was, the report cards, which I've seen, elocution, boxing, I was being trained to be a English gentleman. Now, I don't remember any of this, but from 3, 4, 5, this was there. There's pictures, cap, blazer, short pants, doffing his cap to the headmistress of the school. Now, what I'm getting at is that, okay, there's a sort of certain grounding and a thing set at the bottom. Then, ripped out of that, and 2 weeks later, 10 days later, he's out of this prep school. He's in grade 1 of an elementary school in a small prairie town called Edmonton back in 1957. And I must have had the accent, and you can imagine how long that accent would have lasted. And I'm in grade 1 because I'm 5.5 years old. They don't know what to do with me. And my mom tells the story. We got a subscription to the newspaper, and you sat at the back of the classroom each day reading the Edmonton Journal and doing this and doing that, the puzzles and whatever they did to you. And the other kids are, A is for Apple, because I've been given this stunning head start. So I go through this education process, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, and I blew it. Couldn't do anything with it because I just totally, absolutely didn't fit in. Make a life for myself. Turned out to be a normal Canadian boy, egalitarian. I lost all semblance of the prep school, Cambridge bullshit that was there. But it was there as a foundation of a decent human being, the gentleman sort of thing. Taken away from it before it became too ridiculous, but there as a really important foundation. Then the next year is a Canadian egalitarian normal person thing up to age 35. And then out of that into this one where this culture is, it's Japan. It is what it is. And I've now been here nearly 40 years. So this is now the strongest, I'm dealing with the Japanese people, and when I speak English, I can bang the table and talk to you and grab you by the arm and say things that shouldn't be said. But Nihongo ni nattara, mo hontou ni mo chotto hanarete. So. You have what I'm getting is there's a different personality when you're speaking Japanese and speaking to Japanese people. So there's 3 human beings inside here, not wrestling with each other, living very much in cohabitation with each other that have formed this man's character. And I've seen that, and I've seen that, and I've seen that, and I'm a very self-aware person. And boy, I have some ideas. I would love to be able to get away from here enough to get some more YouTube videos on the printmaking, David's Choice number 13, about that print over there. And then, I did that meaning of life video, which was sort of a trial balloon.
I think people would love that.
Not number 2 meaning of life, but there's you do have free will, and here's how I can prove it, is the next one. And then that thing I mentioned, what our education system needs at the moment is a few million tons of TNT with the plan B ready to replace it the next day. I want to talk about these things. I don't know it all yet, but I have a framework, and what I would like to do is spend time talking to people, walking down the river with mics on, And then they say, no, look, you're misleading. And then have people come back at me telling me why that's not going to work, that's not going to work, that's not going to work. I will go home and say, I should have said this to him, but that process then cooks it more and cooks it more.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I have value to society, and I'm frustrated right now in that it's sort of trapped in here because I'm bringing value to society in a bit of a different way. So I'm sorry, long-term ramble.
No. This is, I think, obviously our levels of experience are different, and how you're a much better storyteller than I am. But I think that's another reason why I wanted to make content, not necessarily to become famous, but that there's something in me that I want to express. And my talent is, I think one of my talents is talking to people, though I might beat around the bush from time to time. But I think that, again, there is value in the conversations.
What I was laughing at, about 15 minutes ago or something, I don't know how long we've been talking about it, not too many minutes into this thing, you had asked me something, and I turned around and asked you something, and I sat and waited. And I said, wait, who's interviewing who here? It's okay.
Yeah. I was about to ask you too.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions for me? Obviously, I come in and
It's much more fun to have a conversation than to have you ask me a question, answer, sit here, you ask another question. Nobody wants that at all. So whether it's been interesting, and I think partway along we've talked too much about the thing, so I'm sorry about that.
But I think that's part. I think having perhaps we did get a little meta about that, but I think people are interested, particularly in your opinion, but even for me, I think some people, because they like how I just kind of came here and did this thing, and whether they can recreate that or not, I think some people they're interested in people who have gone out of their comfort zone and made it work. And so while I'm not, I don't own a business, I'm still freelance. Me busting out of the Midwest bubble, I think we both have interesting perspectives on, even if we're talking about the stuff. But do you have any questions?
Put it out there and people will take from it what they will. We have no idea.
Yeah.
That's something I've learned too recently about the YouTube thing. This is since Corona. It wasn't like this before Corona. We had occasional visitors would come in and say they'd seen something on YouTube, and thank you, and wow, good conversation. Since the return of tourism to Japan after the pandemic, my life has dramatically changed in the volume of things that are happening to me, but it's also changed in the content. The people that come in the door now, overwhelmingly, are people who are very familiar with what I'm doing and what we've done through these social media things, but they're also, it's not just about the printmaking anymore. They're coming because they want to see this person who has affected their lives, and we hear all kinds of different stories. It's not about that they learned how to use paste on a woodblock. It just goes really all over the place. We've had people stand here in front of the desk here, and a couple, and we've had people crying, and it's not unusual actually for people to come here and cry about the fact that they're now having a chance to sit here and talk to me. And you think that doesn't change you, and you realize, my God, I was just trying to tell a story about when I first came to Japan and to have fun and share my experiences. I wasn't trying to make anybody cry, and I wasn't even trying to be dramatic. I wasn't even trying to be anything. I was just sharing my experiences.
Like I said,
the point of it is, you don't know how people are going to see this. So for you too, you have no idea what people are going to take from today's conversation. So just create the content, honest to yourself, try and have fun, and let it happen.
That's obviously I don't expect you to remember the first time I came in, but I still remember, because I came in, I bought prints for a long time, and whenever I came in and I kind of said, well, I'm kind of doing this streaming thing, and but I remember.
And I'm thinking, big talk. This kid keeps talking about this. But maybe.
But I had just started it. But I came to thank you. I came to thank you because your beginnings part 1 video, in particular, the part 2 is good too. Meaning of Life is good, but the beginnings part 1 video, I was starstruck. I met working sound back home. I met many famous people, but when I met you, I was like, this is someone who I can. I don't want to say admire or look up to, but it was someone who, when I meet like Kevin Costner, I'm never going to be in Dances with Wolves or anything, but you had come to Japan, you had, obviously you had a plan and things, but you had done this thing that I kind of had done. So there was.
I'm decades older than you, and I've been around the block a few times and done a few things. Yeah, that's all there is to say.
I think it was easier, not necessarily to relate to you, but there were similarities enough where I could see certain similar characteristics, at least.
Oh, so you mean a little bit of a role model?
Yeah.
Okay, whatever.
And so when I met you, it was right here, and I was stunned because you always give me time. Anytime I come in, you always give me time to bother you. So thank you very much. Yeah. But
it's common sense. There's a little bit of a change that's happened to my life now the past few months. The last video I put out last December, I talked about this, our business success, and then I said something that may have turned out in retrospect to be a mistake. I was just trying to apologize for why there hadn't been too much video content over the past few months, and I explained why. The reason there hasn't been too much video content was because the previous videos brought in so many people, and I'm overwhelmed every day with people saying how good your videos are, and I'm not able to make any new videos and stuff. I was just trying to apologize for being late with another video. But what has happened as a result of this now is there will be cases, not today, but whatever, I'm carving here, hello. And the person will come in and just sort of tiptoe past the bench. And then they'll go looking, browsing, and then whatever, somebody else come in, conversation. And then during that conversation, this guy will turn around and say, well, it's okay to talk to you. He didn't want to talk to me because he saw that video and he really, really didn't want to bother me.
Oh,
so I get it, of course.
okay.
So I've created now a thing where there's many, many people out there who would like to come and talk, but they don't want to bother me because of what I said, because of all these people bothering me. And both things are true.
Yeah.
I'm not getting videos done because of I gave you time tonight, but of course I love doing that. Of course I do. Whatever, we're coming around the same thing here. It's time to move on to a different topic here. I'm sorry, but it's my challenge now to try and get this sorted out. And one thing, when I came back from my visit to Canada a few weeks ago, I sat down with the ladies up here, the management team, Aino-san, Aya-san, and Yamada-kun, and the other. And we tried, how can you guys help me? And one idea came up, and we did this. I registered a membership with a place around the back street here, 2 blocks away. It's called Biz Comfort. It's a WeWork kind of place. It's a they have study carrels and little rooms where you can go. And we said, this was 3-4 weeks ago. Okay, every Wednesday. Wednesday is going to be your YouTube prep day. Do your swim in the morning, get your breakfast, then head over there, and we won't bother you. And the customers come, Dave's out, he can tell them. They can tell them, I'm out doing something, and the customers will accept that, of course. It hasn't happened. 4 Wednesdays in a row, it hasn't happened because firefighting. One staff member couldn't come in today. The other ones are not experienced. I had to be here because we can't run with no veteran staff. So this week's Wednesday is gone. And this is now the story of my life. So just to reiterate, please, if you are here, do come. Say hello. I'm not trying to repeat again the same message. Don't bother me because I'm busy. Of course I'm here. If I'm in the building, say hello and talk. If I'm not here, too bad. Whatever, I'm sorry, we're going around the same territory here again and again.
Do you have any questions for me or anything?
Why aren't you out walking? I'm sorry.
Rain, no. Not even rain. Rain doesn't stop me anymore.
No, I think we've had a good conversation today. It's fine. When you asked to do this tonight, I'm thinking, is this going to be interview questions and answers questions? But you said you promised it wouldn't be like that, and it hasn't been like that.
And I tried to keep it not reporter-ish because
it's more of a podcasting.
It's almost more of and that's why I think a direction, because I think just going and what's your name and how what's your, and I mean I was gonna actually ironically ask what's your favorite Japanese food, but do you have one specific?
Come on, Jason.
Because it's always funny whenever my Japanese clients talk to me, they always say the top questions I get are, what's your favorite Japanese food? Or Jason-san, do you have a favorite kanji? Or a favorite Japanese phrase or things like that? Do you have any of those?
I don't have this kind of conversation.
That's okay. No. That's it's always whenever I talk to Japanese people, it's always like that. So yeah, that's okay.
If we've come that far down and we're scraping the bottom of the barrel, it might be time to wrap this up.
Yeah.
I think. I'm not sure. It is fun to see, you know, as I said before, I'm going to repeat the same thing. There's people that talk about projects and talk about projects. You're obviously guys going to do some of these things. So for that, I admire you, and that's why I'm going to spend time with you. So
thank you.
Keep it up, guy.
Thank you.
You're doing something interesting. I have no idea what the future holds for you. None of my business. It will bring what it will bring, but it sounds like you've got an interesting path in front of you. Find some good content and bring it to us.
Thank you. I hope so.
Let me know when this thing starts so we can talk about it on our stream, you know, and
Absolutely.
should we be doing the raid thing? I don't know, whatever.
Raid thing helps out a lot.
Talk to the mods, because I'm the one, I end up not even seeing the chat and just signing off. So talk to the mods to make sure they're on board with this.
Yeah.
Tell them when you want this to happen and when you don't want it to happen because you're in the bathroom or something or whatever. And we'll happily do it. So.
Thank you. That's huge help. So I guess we'll sign off.
I'm not sure who you are or whatever, but thanks very much for hanging out.
Thank you for hanging out.
I hope it hasn't been too much talking about the thing itself. I'm sorry, I'm not sure. Maybe he's going to edit this later and maybe cut out some parts.
We'll cut out a few of the. But I think overall I don't think we talked about anything too. I don't think we talked about it.
Who's your next guest? Or is it a guest? I'm not sure. Who's your next talking partner?
I would like to do guests. One of my clients is a movie producer, and I've been trying to get her on.
A Japanese person?
She's a Japanese person who's made some pretty, not big films, but pretty big films. So.
And she speaks English?
She's been my client for a few years. Yeah,
sounds like fun. If you let me know when this happens.
So I'm trying to get her on. Otherwise, next guest will be on the road. It'll be there's a couple of very interesting, super interesting ryokan, like Minshuku ryokan at the bottom of Kagoshima, and one of them is called Showa Ryokan.
Places with history, you mean? A story?
Well, it's it looks like a mom and pop ryokan for like 80 years. So maybe not. I mean, there's history, but you can tell it's run by the same family for X number of years. Just by looking at it, you go, "Oh, this is."
So stories, they're obviously stories. Do they speak English, or are you gonna have
I'll be in Japanese. It'll be in Japanese.
And you're gonna subtitle.
We'll be subtitling
Okay.
in English.
Too bad.
But I mean, again, it's the not having even subtitling. I know some people, it's going to turn some people off. That's the reality. But I would. And if someone does magically speak English, then, but I have to assume, and it's wrong to assume, but I have to assume that they probably don't speak English.
Maybe there's a younger generation that can.
Maybe there's a chance. And that's another reason why I'm kind of emailing ahead someplace. Now, the ryokans, I'm going to email ahead as well, but some of them, they don't have emails. They don't have, they have fax machines. They have fax machines, but I'm not.
There's also, especially a lot of accommodation type places are very gun shy about having cameras and stuff inside. Understandably so.
Yep. And that's another reason why I'm focusing more on, like, by the time I get to hotels, stream stuff's off, because I'm not even trying to play that game.
No,
I don't
if
want to
you're
play
trying
that game.
to bring us interesting people and interesting stories, well, maybe that's on a day off and you're spending the day there,
And so that's why, and again, too, I think after talking to them a little bit and saying, hey, I'm walking, and that's another thing too, that whenever I was walking the Tokaido, once I explain people and say, hey, I'm doing this thing,
then
they're much more open, because it's not, oh, here's another gaijin who's
they've read the newspaper stories. Yes.
It's, this guy speaks a level of Japanese. He's camera's covered. It's fully covered. It's got a stocking cap on or whatever. It's off. It's unplugged. But that's what I'll be doing. Is I'll be rolling up. There will be no cameras, and then I'll say, hey, I'm a YouTuber. I would like to, if it's possible. But again, too, that's why I'm emailing places in advance. To see if they will send me someone.
Jason, I'm sure there's a million stories out there.
Yeah.
I hope you can find a bunch of them. Good.
Well, thank you very much for your time.
No, best wishes with the project. Keep me in touch, as I said, with what you're doing, and good luck with the project.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to us.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Hey, if you liked that video, please consider hitting the thumbs up button. And if you want to see any behind the scenes or any other action that's not in these videos, please consider following the other social medias. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you again. Take care. Bye.